Yes, and welcome back to another video on this channel. It actually passed quite some time since I uploaded the last time something on this channel, and the main reason why I stopped uploading videos, I guess actually some 3 years ago, was mainly that my English back then was simply not good enough to continue making videos on this channel. My English now got a bit better. I was back then, I guess, 15 years old or something like this, but now the quality of my videos should be a bit higher, and also my general video quality, audio quality, the quality of the pictures I use for my videos increased, and this is the main reason why I want to give it another try on this channel. The main subject of this channel will still mainly be Germanic history, but I will likely also talk a bit about German history. Maybe also some politics, but there are people out there that can do a much better job with this, and yeah. If I will talk about politics, it will be only on a very shallow level. In general, I'm very interested in ancient stuff, ancient history, but also Indo-European languages. And these are also some topics that I study. Something that will be also different from the old videos I made on this channel is that I will not script my videos that much, but I will mainly talk free. And also the subjects will be maybe a bit more random. This channel will be largely inspired from my Twitter account, where I do similar stuff, mainly in the form of Twitter threads. And in a certain way, this channel will be mainly a video version of the stuff that I post on Twitter. But I think that it will be maybe somewhat interesting for some people nevertheless. And this is the main reason why I decided to revive this English language channel. But as I already said, I most likely won't post scripted videos, so the videos on this channel will be mainly unscripted. And I will maybe upload as often videos on this channel as I do post threads on Twitter. And the main reason for this is that I'm also quite busy with my 2 German language channels, and I also plan to open another German language channel. So I do have 3 German language channels. I'm busy on Twitter and other platforms such as DeviantArt. So I will maybe upload a video all few weeks, but not that often. So it will be from the schedule quite comparable to my Twitter account. And a large part of the content which I will upload here is also quite comparable to Twitter, as I already said. But I guess it is now time to talk about our first topic, and today's topic is actually the relationship between the landscape names of Bavaria and Bohemia. This is something that could be described as a kind of ancient etymology, I guess. So I will talk today mainly about the way in which the names of Bavaria and Bohemia are linguistically interconnected to each other. And today's video, just to get us out of the way at the beginning, will be less about culture or history, but mainly about etymology. And also in some way ancient history, but I won't go into medieval or younger history. Although, and that may be said, there are also some interesting aspects on this one. But let's start. Bavaria is a part of today's southeastern Germany, and it is actually also the southeasternmost state of the Federal Republic of Germany. And one of its neighboring countries is actually the Czech Republic. And the Czech Republic is mainly composed of 2 different historical landscapes. The one landscape is Bohemia, and the other landscape is Movia. In German you would say Böhmen und Mähren. And this is also the historical term which was used in German to describe the Czech Republic, Böhmen und Mähren. Although the larger part of these 2 regions is actually the western one, and this is Bohemia. And Bohemia, therefore, in a certain sense, at least as a historical landscape, neighbors directly to Bavaria. Now, the names of Bohemia and Bavaria may not appear at first glance very similar, but you can see that there is, for example, a common B umlaut in both names, and this is also the point where I want to start today when we talk about the ancient connection of these 2 landscapes. More than 2000 years ago, maybe some 2300 years ago, in this area where today southern Germany, eastern France and in general the northern Alps are located, once the so-called Hallstatt and Latene culture extended. The Hallstatt and Latene culture are material cultures that are typically associated with Celtic tribes and generally early Celtic people, and it is actually also quite possible that the original Celts came from the area in which these cultures, material cultures, once spread. due to the fact that they are material cultures, you can still see them today in a certain sense. So, for example, from an archaeological point of view, you can still find remains of their former culture. And therefore it is also believed, because of the continuity which is connected to certain archaeological findings, that the Celts later spread from this area to neighboring regions such as Gaul or Britain, and they originally came from this area. And a part of this so-called Urheimat, which is a German term that is also in a linguistic context quite popular, may also have been the area of today's Bavaria and later Bohemia. And something that is very interesting is that the name of a tribe, of a Celtic tribe, was already named back then in this area. And this tribe was the so-called Boy tribe. Back then, the area of the Hallstatt and Latin culture, and therefore also today's Bohemia and Bavaria, was actually quite developed. They established many settlements in this region, and there's also evidence for a quite complex trade network and also dynastic relationships between different tribes. And overall, it seems that there was actually a quite complex world which existed back then in this Celtic world. But, and this is also somewhat proven by archaeological findings, since at least the 2nd century before Christ, this Celtic world in southern Germany and in general in this region somewhat declines. There may be different reasons to this. One reason may be that there was a change in climate overall. Another change also may be that many Celtic tribes in this time decided to migrate southward. Another reason may be also, and this is somewhat interesting when we will take a look at the relationship between Bavaria and Bohemia, Germanic tribes formed in the north of this area and increasingly also pushed southward, and therefore most likely were to some degree in conflict with Celtic tribes. Around the year 50 BC, the Romans then conquered Gaul, and this was most likely another reason which was just a bit too much to handle for these complex developed Celtic trade routes. And this, in combination with these other factors, such for example as the Germanic tribes from the north, led to the ultimate decline of these Celtic settlements in southern Germany and also Bohemia. This is also something that can be seen from an archaeological point of view very clearly. There are oppida, which are simply their cities got at this time often abandoned, and the places where they once stood, mainly on hills or mountains, are not re-inhabited for many centuries. And this process, which can be seen overall for many Celtic tribes, also somewhat applies to the Boy tribe. As I already said, the Boy Celts were a tribe which originally settled in what is today southern Germany and Bohemia. But it is somewhat interesting that it is quite likely that their tribe name actually remained. And this is also where all of this gets somewhat interesting. And where we also can see at a first glance the connection between Bavaria and Bohemia, at least on a linguistic level. Because the name of the Boy was most likely taken up by Germanic tribes which came from the north, and then designated the now devastated land which was originally inhabited by the Boy as the homeland of the Boy tribe, or simply the home of the Boy. At this point in history, this so-called homeland in the land of the Boy tribe was most likely largely empty, and it is in general described later by the Romans that they actually extended a giant old growth forest which was called Hercynia silva, and most likely extended from today's Schwarzwald in Germany or the Black Forest up to modern-day Slovakia. So it may have actually covered an area of around 200,000 square kilometers, which is quite huge. Another thing that could be in favor of the theory that the Germanic tribes actually still used this word boy to describe this landscape is that there is a very common B umlaut in many tribe names of Germanic tribes which lived there, and B umlaut which is quite similar and over the centuries very consistent. So there were different Germanic tribes in the area of today's Bohemia especially, which clearly used a name which had a B umlaut. So a few examples would be the Bainohaimai, Baningas, Batainoi, Bainaib, Baimoi. My pronunciation here is very German, I know. I could maybe try to pronounce it in English, but I think it would somewhat fail. and the names of the tribes should be shown anyways on the screen of the video right now. So I think you can see what I tried to show. But as you may have already noticed, neither the names of these tribes nor the name Boy itself is very similar to later Bohemia or Bavaria, and this is where the Romans come into play. Because the Germanic word for home, and therefore also homeland to some extent, was likely something that sounded like Hamon, which is actually somewhat comparable to the modern words home in English or Heim in German. This word Hamon was most likely applied to the word boy, which originally described this landscape. And therefore the Germanic tribes likely called this area Bohemia, which loosely translated would mean something like home in the land of the boy. And the Romans most likely took up this actually Germanic name for this landscape and Latinized it to Bohemun, which means that the original Bohemon actually became Bohemum. And later, especially since the 3rd century, there was also a second term to describe the area north of the Danube and north of the Roman border, and this term was Boiemum. It was for a long time assumed that Boiemum and Bohemum would actually describe the same thing, but today it is believed that there may have been already a distinction back then between Boiemum and Bohemum, and Boiemum could have described the area which was located further in the west, and Bohemum quite the area which is today's Bohemia. And because of this, it is actually somewhat plausible that in the aftermath of the migration of peoples, these two names, Boiemum at the one hand and Bohemum at the other, developed in the modern words Bavaria and Bohemia. It also can be noticed that the name Bohemum is somewhat similar, at least in its umlaut, to the Bajuwari tribe, which was a Germanic tribe which formed in this region and also later founded the historical Bavaria, and this is most likely also where this name came from. So the Latin word Bohemum was combined with the word vari, which most likely meant something like warrior or man, and from this developed the word Bajuwari for the tribe, the Germanic tribe which settled in this region. And strictly spoken, the word Bavaria also developed this way from the tribe's name and therefore from Bohemum. So I think the important parts of this video are actually said, and I guess that I can do these videos on a somewhat regular basis, maybe once or 2 weeks and maybe a few times in the month, and this could be a concept which I would apply to this channel. And this is the idea that I have for this project right now. So feel free to let me your thoughts on this in the comments, and I hope anyways that you will watch the next video also again. See you then.